So that's how we fight the fight, and every week we do it, it gets better and better out here. Now thankfully I don't have... What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is Friday, December 9th here in South Georgia. Starting to cool off just a little bit from having some of those 80-degree days earlier this week. Not a lot, but cooling off a little bit. And anytime we can get some cool weather around here this time of year, it's always welcome. So in today's video, we're mainly going to be focusing on this plot here behind me where we have our onions and garlic planted. Going to check on everything there, see how everything's doing. Got a few things popping up in there. Probably need to do a little weeding, maybe need to do a little fertilizing. And then after we get this plot settled, we're going to go over there by the barn where we have some more onions growing. And there's one little special thing that's been in one of those beds a long time. I want to harvest or see if there's anything to harvest. So let's start off by checking on our allium plot here, which is almost completely full except for a little sliver there in the middle where we'll probably plant something come January. Let's see how all this stuff is doing. So we've got 5 double rows of short day onions planted on this side of the plot. These 3 rows here were planted first around early November or so. So we've got our red onions there, the Chianti variety, then we have DP Sweet, then we have Timon right there. And starting to see some really good growth on these. Tops are getting long and putting on new leaves, looking nice and green and healthy. So we get this question a lot, especially as people get their onions planted and they start growing pretty good. They'll ask, well, my onion tops are getting so long, they're falling over on the ground. Is there something I need to be doing there? Nope, nothing you need to be doing at all. Just let them grow and grow and grow. You want to maximize that green growth during that vegetative stage. Don't cut the tops if they're laying on the ground. Just let them grow, get all the green growth you can get out of them right now. So we're just having fun watching those puppies there grow, trying to keep the weeds at a minimum, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Now on these 2 rows here, we just planted these, seems like a couple weeks ago. We've got a variety called Georgia Boy here, and a variety called Sterling here, and they're just now starting to grow a little bit. I didn't water these as well as I should have right after I planted, and I've lost a few, especially in this double row here. But we still got plenty of onions planted in there. Kind of hard to see the onions because we got a lot of chickweed in there too, but we're going to take care of that in a little bit. Then we've got that blank spot there I was telling you about earlier. And then over here we have a bunch of garlic planted. I mean a bunch of garlic planted in this little spot here. It's probably 10 to 15 foot wide and then 30 foot long. Now I meant to do this before any of the garlic started sprouting, but that elephant garlic popped so quick that I really didn't have time to get my mulch down before it started kind of coming up through the soil there. But as you can see, no problems with it coming up through the straw, putting it down after it had popped up just a little bit. So we use pine straw because we have plenty of it available around here. Didn't have to go buy any. I was able to rake up pine straw around the edge of these wood lines here and have enough for this little spot. So the first thing we had planted here before we put the straw down, we did 2 double rows of elephant garlic, which you see popping up nicely there. I don't know that every clove we planted has popped through yet, but a majority of them have. We're going to have 2 nice full double rows of elephant garlic there. We planted this a lot closer than I have in the past. Kind of makes me a little nervous looking at it right now, but we've got 6-inch emitter spacing on the drip tape down there so we can keep it fed, and hopefully we still get the same size cloves that we got when we used to plant this stuff on a 12-inch spacing. Now about a week after we planted those 2 double rows of elephant garlic, we planted 2 more double rows here, a little more elephant garlic, and then a lot of soft neck garlic, the Island Star variety, which we really liked last year. Now this stuff hasn't started forming any full rows yet, but some of the soft neck garlic starting to pop through there. And usually once you see 1 or 2 popping through in just a few days, you'll have a nice full row that looks like that over there. So we're just keeping a close eye on this and waiting for it all to come through there. So everything's doing pretty well here behind me, and we're going to get a lot of good alliums out of this 30 by 35 plot here come, next spring. Now we need to work on this weed battle a little bit. Something I've been fighting every week for about the last 3 or 4 weeks in this plot. We're making progress, but we haven't quite won the battle yet. So we got us a pretty epic chickweed battle going on in this plot here, and we've just been chipping away at it week by week. This unplanted sliver here was consumed with chickweed just a week or two ago. Still got some chickweed down there, but we've made a good bit of progress through some light cultivation. These 2 rows right here that we planted later than the other 3 have a good bit of chickweed in them, not as much as they had last week. And then over here to these 3 rows that we planted first have got just a tiny bit of chickweed in them. So we can see kind of the progression of the chickweed fight here. And I'd say we're winning the battle here, and it's kind of at a standstill over there, but we're gonna gain a little momentum on it today. So when we have a weed problem like this, it's really important to understand causation and then also understand what we can do to keep it from getting any worse. So I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I can't really remember, but at some point I had a lot of chickweed in this plot here and evidently got a lot of chickweed seeds in the soil. My chickweed weed seed bank in this plot was pretty high. We're working on knocking it down, but starting when we planted these onions, had a really high chickweed weed seed bank, and I can tell that just by the amount of chickweed that has sprouted in there. Now where we have the pine straw and the garlic, the weed pressure is obviously not going to be near as bad because we've got the soil covered there. May still get a few chickweeds popping up through that straw where it's not quite as thick on the ground and we have to go hand pull those, but not really having to fight it over on that side of the plot. Where we have our onions planted, and I've talked about before why I don't like mulching onions, we are having to fight it. Now the chickweed didn't really start popping up in here until 2 things happened. One, the weather got right. You know, we don't deal with chickweed all throughout the year. We mainly deal with it this time of year. So the temperature got right for the chickweed to start thriving, to start germinating, and start really growing fast. And also, we had to cultivate this a little bit. So we didn't use a tiller, but we had to use the wheel hoe to break up the top just a little bit so we could layer drip tape and plant our onions. And anytime you cultivate, you're stirring up that weed seed bank, and you're inevitably gonna get some weeds going. So that's just kind of a necessary evil with our system, burying the drip tape, doing things the way we do it. Now if we would use a tiller to cultivate this, we probably would have stirred up a lot more weed seeds than we did with the wheel hoe. So we understand the sequence of events that cause the problem. Now how do we solve it and keep it from getting worse in future years? Well, the main way to do that is to prevent any of those little chickweeds out there from going to seed and increasing that already high chickweed weed seed bank that we have. So that means coming out here once or twice a week like I've been doing some real light cultivation on top of the soil, trying to disturb those chickweeds as much as possible. There's obviously too many out there to pull them all by hand, but trying to flip them over so they die. They don't all die, as you can see, but a good portion of them die every time we do this, and sooner or later we'll have the problem conquered. So what I do is I take my little single tine cultivator here and just work around each of these onion plants. Now this is pretty meticulous work, especially since these plants are pretty young and tender, but with this tool makes it pretty easy. And this is just something I like to come out here and do late in the afternoon. Good way to kind of wind down from a long day. Just kind of start working around these plants, trying to flip over those chickweeds there. Every now and then I'll have one that's just too close to a plant and I can't get it with the hoe without killing a plant, and I'll just have to reach down here and throw it out. But I can get most of them with this, get them flipped over, and on these warmer days we've been having, they usually will die.
Maybe I'm no better than the man who pays $1 for a fee. Maybe I'm no different than the ones who are running all of this. I'm just searching for a peace of mind, and I'm just a traveler passing through for time.
All right. So that's how we fight the fight, and every week we do it. gets better and better out here. Now thankfully I don't have this level of chickweed pressure in all of my plots. It's worse right here. And if you garden long enough, especially if you garden in the ground like we are here, you're gonna have a plot get away from you. Now I don't remember exactly when this plot got away from me, but you know, as evident by the number of chickweed seeds we had in that soil there, it did at some point. When that happens, don't give up. You can win, you can kind of reclaim that plot. You just got to work on that weed seed bank, be diligent about it, and make sure none of those weeds that are popping up are going to seed and adding to the weed seed bank anymore. Now the last thing I want to do in this plot today is add little juice. Go dogs. So we're going to be adding some of this stuff right here, this good old AgroThrive general purpose. Now this plot probably has plenty of nitrogen in it from the chickens, but early on we really want to make sure those onions got some of this P and this K right here to give them some good root development. Now from my experiences, this AgroThrive hits or is delivered to the plants pretty quickly, even in the cooler months. But with as warm as it's been being around here, this stuff should get taken up by the plants pretty quickly. But before we inject AgroThrive or any kind of viscous organic fertilizer through our drip system, we always got to make sure we check our filter first. And what do you know, there's our old friend Mr. Chickweed again, reminding us that he's not going anywhere for a couple months. So we've got our drip irrigation filter right here. Now I haven't injected anything through this filter yet that I can remember. I think this was a new filter when I did this setup right here and installed this system on this plot. So there shouldn't be any stuff in it, but I want to check just to be sure. Well, it's not exactly clean. Got some hard particles in there. So I'm going to rinse that out, clean that off, put it back in here, and then we'll get our fertilizer injector ready. So we got our filter cleaned out and reinstalled. Now we have our injector here, which I just leave hooked up all the time over here. I'll pour a little bit of that water out, maybe a little more, and then fill it back up. Some of this general purpose here. And I can never do this without spilling a little bit, but we'll see what happens. Well, spilled a couple drops, not as bad as usual. Put our top back on here. Spin it around, get it tight. Got too much in there, losing a little out the top, that's all right. Turn these little switches off for a second, these little inline valves. Turn my water on up here. And yeah, even though it's December, we still got the air conditioner running around here. So I'm going to flip my water going in valve and then flip my water going out valve. And there we can see, we're injecting now. Now the last thing I want to do in today's video is dig up something that's in one of these fire ring raised beds over here by the barn. Before we look at these, let me be honest with you, I've kind of forgotten these were here over the last couple weeks. I haven't watered them, anything, and they're looking pretty dang pitiful. But hopefully in one of them we have something. So in these neglected beds, we got some of those super hot peppers over there looking pretty pitiful, but somehow they've survived a couple light frosts that we've had already. Here we've got our multiplying onions that Cajun Bee gave us. Haven't really did a great job taking care of those. They're still alive, but I need to nurse them back to good health pretty soon. Got some volunteer dill in there as well. Got some herbs in that bed, some sage, tarragon, oregano. Got our Okinawan spinach plant over there. It seems to be still doing pretty well. More herbs over there. And then in this bed, got a few volunteer turmeric plants, but that's not what I'm here to get today. I'm here to get that horseradish plant right there. Now I don't remember exactly when I planted that horseradish root there. It was a while ago. I'm thinking it was earlier this year sometime. Just went and got a big honking horseradish root from Whole Foods, stuck it in that bed there, and it has grown for a while. today's the big day when I'm going to see if there's anything there that we can use. One of my good buddies has an oyster roast at his house every year around this time, kind of right before Christmas, and nothing's better on some raw oysters than some fresh horseradish. So we're going to see if we can get anything here to take to the oyster roast tonight. Now I might be about to make a complete fool of myself right here, because I know nothing about growing horseradish except that you plant a big root in the ground and just let it do its thing. Let's get this volunteer turmeric out of here before we get the horseradish. Not a huge one, but not bad. Got a little turmeric to use there. I think there's one more here. That's a little tiny puny one there. Now on the horseradish, another thing I don't know is if you're supposed to dig up the whole thing or you're supposed to just get a little bit of it. We're going to see if there's anything to get down here. Feels like there is. Well, nothing like what I planted. Feels like it's rotten a little bit there. That can't be good. That can't be what's supposed to happen. I told y'all I was going to make a fool out of myself. I have a little bit there we can work with. Not a whole lot. Looking like I'm going to be taking a trip to the grocery store to get some horseradish. Well, I was able to salvage a few little slivers there. Not much. And I think it's fair to say we pretty much got skunked on the horseradish. Back to the drawing board. And if any of you out there have any horseradish growing tips, please do fill me in, because I've got a lot of work to do. Now, even though this is pretty pitiful, I'm probably still going to take it inside, wash it up, run it over a grater, put it in a little jar, take it with me to the oyster roast tonight. Although this is enough horseradish for near the amount of oysters I'm going to eat tonight, at least I'll be able to say I had a few oysters with some horseradish that I grew in our backyard garden. And now that we've dug that up, we got a bed that's open and we can plant something else there. Got some leeks in the greenhouse that need to be planted. I've got some hardneck garlic, just a few bulbs that a viewer sent me that I want to try growing, so we may put either of those in there. And despite our lackluster horseradish harvest, I hope you enjoyed the video today. As always, you can find links to any of the products used in this video in the description below. We've also got links to all our affiliate partners. Got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got our garden blog, recipes, hats, shirts, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe. Hit that notification button, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh.